Santa's sleigh might not be as full of gifts this year. A tropical storm that is lashing southern China, coupled with persistent COVID-19 related supply chain disruptions, has led to a global shipping backlog, and that is giving retailers a hard time filling their shelves. Well, shipping data reveals there are almost 70 loaded ships waiting to dock at Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and nearly 40 waiting off Singapore. Now, this congestion is worse than usual. A backlog here is a big issue because Singapore is a key hub for containers to be moved from one vessel to another while in transit, and any disruption here would have far-reaching ramifications. The wait is already more than 3 days at major ports in Northeast Asia, and it could extend to over a week in other parts of the world. A look at other key container ports. Now, about 40 ships are waiting to dock in Los Angeles, and a jam also building over in Vietnam. Well, exporters are considering alternate routes to send cargo. Well, the port of Los Angeles will operate 24/7 to clear that jam. There is a rush to resolve the backlog because of fears that year-end holiday goods may not reach consumers in time. And port congestion and a lack of containers have pushed shipping rates to record levels this year. Well, for more, we're joined by Simon Heaney, a senior manager of container research at Drewry. Well, Simon, should consumers brace themselves for a lack of supplies? And realistically, how long could these disruptions last?
Okay, well, the global container supply chain has been creaking for over a year now, really, since the uptick in or rebound in US containerized demand picked up around about the start of the second half of last year. Goods have still been getting through. They're just taking a lot longer to arrive. And I think the reason we haven't seen empty shelves previously is that importers, cargo owners have been quite proactive, predicting the delays that they're going to see, and they've brought forward a number of their orders, their shipments, to get ahead of the disruption. But of course, this in itself has heaped more pressure onto the system, and that's what we're seeing now. And I think largely retailers have shielded consumers from sort of the extreme increases that they've had in transportation costs, but eventually something had to give. They've been so high for so long that we are now starting to see that have the supply chain issues have a direct influence in terms of our cost of living. And I think that's why it's becoming a bigger story now in the public mind, even though, as I said, this has really been brewing for quite some time now. So to answer your other question in terms of when we might expect to see supply chain operations normalize, unfortunately, there really is no simple solution, so no quick fix. Supply chains are extremely complex, lots of moving parts. So in terms of how you could even go about predicting when we might get back to what we might hope to see as normal is really difficult because data is patchy in terms of its availability and its quality. We track a lot of sort of more lagging indicators such as port statistics, waiting times outside ports, freight rates, those sorts of things that we track at Drewry. But the problem is really they're all just the symptom of the problem, and they don't have so much predictive value. So what we have to rely on is more anecdotal reports that we get from industry sources. And what we're hearing is that we're not now going to get back to normal until the end of 2022. So that's a long time frame.
Yeah. And those disruptions,
we had expected more progress.
Simon, those disruptions, they're already having an impact on the global chip supply chain and on the automobile industry. So do you think this is going to spread to other sectors? And, you know, as we talked about those costs, should consumers be ready to shell out more for essential goods?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, you know, it's affecting all sectors. So I think we've all got to be prepared to take a hit in our pocket, unfortunately, because these costs have, as I said, they've been going on for extreme freight rates. Transportation costs have been rising very, very steeply for at least 12 months now, and they're starting to plateau now, but they're still extremely high by sort of normal averages.
Do you also think that this could spill over to other sectors?
Well, every sector requires ocean transportation, mainly in container shipping. So any delay, no sector will be immune from these costs. I think if you're higher value goods, you probably can take the hit a little longer. We know that lower value commodities are becoming less viable to be shipped simply because of the higher transportation costs. So you may see more supplies at that end of the scale. But ultimately, we're all involved in the container supply chain. We all require it to function to get the goods into the shop. So we're all going to be affected by this.
And Simon, zooming in onto Singapore, which is an important port, what kind of spillover effects would it have on other Asian hubs?
Singapore is the biggest transshipment gateway in the world, and shipping schedules are supposed to be regular, with fixed day patterns where ports are in that rotation, can all plan ahead, make provisions to make sure that you have a seamless transition of cargo to and from container ships. But obviously, any delay that you get at one port will then have a ripple effect elsewhere, and that just gets magnified by the size of the port and the duration of the delay. So it's going to affect every port. And the problem is it's not localized. This isn't a localized issue. It's not just congestion in Asia. We're seeing congestion in Europe. In North America, it's particularly bad. So when you don't have any slack in the system, you can normally, if it's a localized issue, you could work around it. You can find solutions. But at the moment, it's a global problem, and there really just is no there is no path of least resistance that can be found. So that's what's making this such a complex issue to be able to resolve and give you an accurate assessment of how long it may last, unfortunately.
Well, thanks so much for that, Simon Heaney there at Drewry.